India market close, and what a day it has been. I would say a day of recovery on most counts. Let's quickly take a look at where the Nifty and the Sensex are. Now, when you look at the indices, you're just probably seeing, a very range-bound, flat kind of trade, but the real story is in the broader markets. Let me just pull out the advanced decline to show you what the entire day has looked like and where all the action is. It is definitely the day of the broader markets. It's a day of IT companies. Now, right at the start of trade, you saw very narrow range-bound trade. You saw the advances improve dramatically, and they have sort of held on through the day. So you have recovery coming in, you have buying coming in, short covering coming in, call it what you may. Let's pull up the heat map and see what's been happening, and you'll see very clearly why IT is the sector of the day. So today we don't have a stock of the day, but we definitely have a sector of the day, and TCS, I would say, is the big mover. 2.5% move on TCS today. Tech Mahindra doing fabulously as well. Divi's among the other gainers of the day. Bharti, Shriram Finance, all of them up there. Even an HCL Tech you see in the first line. Infi not doing too badly. Wipro about 0.5% up. So IT has been the big story. On the losing end, Bajaj Auto has continued to show softness right from the get-go. This was the case on opening trade as well. Perhaps you're seeing some profit booking coming there. Nestle down about 2.5%. There is a note which has marked it as underperform. That could be a contributing factor, but definitely some weakness coming in all of your consumables FMCG space, whether it's a Nestle, whether it is a Britannia as well, seeing that kind of a pain. Let's quickly pull up what's happening with Nifty contributors and what is really keeping it afloat in a sense. And yeah, there you have it. Pretty much balancing out between an RIL and a TCS, two heavyweights kind of balancing it out, and which is why you see an even keel there on the Nifty as well. Kotak Mahindra Bank has seen quite a bit of a hit. Let's pull up the sectoral indices and give you a sense of what really has been buzzing in trade today. And there you have it, the PSU banks up. Realty has had a pretty bad day. Realty down about 2.5%, maybe a few exceptions here and there. But IT stocks is where the entire story lies. Hersh, we'll do a detailed piece on the IT sector and why that is the sector of the day. Yes. But some real sizzlers in the broader markets as well.
Well, yes, absolutely. Some on the basis of news, not too many on the basis of news. In fact, they were buzzing at the start of the day, but some of them have cooled off since that point. Let me start off with a few names. Let's pull up some on the back of numbers. You have the likes of an MOIL, Nalco, Hindustan Zinc. Some of these are doing well. MOIL and Nalco came out with numbers with their update, and the stocks are up and away on the back of that. Let's also pull up something like a GTND. That one has announced a business split, and the energy business spin-off is effective today. Stock is up 5% as we speak. Something like a Shelly Engineering in the broader markets, 3% up. In fact, it was up 7+% earlier in the day. There's an initiating coverage note from Systematic. 720 is the target price on this one. Something like an Ashiana Housing also doing fairly well. 440 crore worth of units sold off entirely on their new project. They've virtually done quite well on that one, almost 3% higher on that one. Again, on the back of numbers, something like a Satin Credit Care doing very well in trade today. Even an Ireda, second consecutive day where it's up nearly 5+%. So both of those also doing very, very well. Then some defense stocks which are doing well as well. Something like a Datamatics, IdeaForge. Look at Mazagon Docks, look at Cochin Shipyard, all of those doing fairly well. Even within the slightly smaller market cap kind of names, you have Datamatics, IdeaForge, NIB, all of which are doing very, very well. 3% plus on all those three as well. Lastly, some sugar stocks also doing fairly well. Bajaj Hindustan, Dalmia Bharat, Sri Renuka, all of which are up again 3% plus. So there are pockets where and certain sectors which are buzzing, but outside of that, certain specific names as well that we've tried to cover. We'll obviously chat about that a little bit more on this show itself.
Defense is definitely one play which is catching my eye. Now, a lot of stories doing the rounds that you could have a big announcement at the cabinet briefing. It takes place every Wednesday. We'll have to wait and see how that is playing out. But even a Garden Reach, I would add to Hersh's list. Garden Reach has just been, fantastic, about 8% today. Some others that have caught my eye, Manali Petro is about 13.5% up. Some sugar stocks are doing very, very well. Dwarkesh, Andhra Sugar. You look at that entire list, and sugar stocks are another set which are having a pretty good day. Yeah. There you have it. Even Paras Defense is buzzing in trade today. We're going to go across to Osho Krishan from Angel One, who's joining us today. So it's Sudip Bandyopadhyay of Inditrade Capital. Welcome to both of you. Thank you so much for speaking with us. But let me begin with Osho. Osho, hi. How are you doing? Great to have you on NDTV Profit. Let's first get a sense of how you are seeing the technical charts as far as the Nifty and the Bank Nifty is concerned. Bank Nifty has been seesawing in a small range all through the day. So you're seeing that pressure coming in?
Very good afternoon. Thank you for having me at your show. Well, coming to the query on Nifty, the Nifty has seen a kind of a resilience near the zone of 22,500. But at the same time, dips are auguring very well for the bulls. So that portrays that market is having a very strong bullish undertone that can be seen, because as we have seen a decent gap down opening, which was augured well for the bulls, and we have seen a very strong up move. But on the higher end, 22,500 still has the strong put writing positions around 22,500. So I am expecting until we surpass the zone of 22,500 on Nifty, there can be some kind of consolidation in the benchmark index. On the lower end, 22,300 to 350 should be acting as the support zone, and on the higher end, 22,500 should be acting as the target or resistance in the short term period. And the time we surpass the zone of 22,500, then only we can see another 200 to 300 point of rally coming to the benchmark index. Now coming to Bank Nifty comparatively is looking very positive as compared to the benchmark, because overall the scenario in Bank Nifty is very positive, especially if I'll be talking about PSU banks. Then PSU banks are looking very strong. Major of the PSU banks have seen a strong breakout, or they are hovering around the all-time high level. So I'm expecting that Bank Nifty will be having a bullish undertone from here onwards and can even outperform the benchmark index. On level specific front, 47,300 to 200 is a very strong support zone for Bank Nifty. While on the higher end, 47,800 is the first resistance, followed by 48,000 psychological mark. But overall, this count is looking very positive, and I am expecting within 1 to 2 trading sessions, the level of 48,000 can be breached in Bank Nifty, and we can witness a very strong upsurge in the overall market.
So Bank Nifty is looking positive. That's very clear. Great cue coming in from Osho Krishan. Sudip Bandyopadhyay also with us this afternoon. Sudip, very good afternoon to you. All the action today in the broader markets and in your defense shipping kind of plays, a Cochin shipping. I was just looking at what's happening with Cochin shipping. Talked about a Garden Reach, a Paras Defense, etc. What would be your take on this? Are you going to see more and more of this kind of a buzz ahead of elections? Last few decisions actually that the government can make. I mean, the model code of conduct is on, so no new big schemes. But the current government can announce, details of what has already been in the public domain. So, what do you think is contributing to the buzz today?
Well, I think, first of all, I think missed out Mazgaon Dock.
My bad. No, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, Mazgaon Dock is another sizzler today.
Absolutely. I think these are all sizzlers today. I find it little, confusing and little hard to understand and process this. I know these are good companies and they are getting orders left, right, and center, and rightly so. I mean, we are doing defense make in India, and I think that's a very, very right step. The government is spending quite a lot of money, and more money will be spent for indigenizing the defense, particularly this, shipbuilding, submarines, and the whole lot of stuff related to that. So obviously there is a lot of traction as far as these companies are concerned, and they're getting orders continuously. So all that is good. The only challenge is the valuation at which these stocks are at present, and and even from those levels, if they are moving up, I think it becomes very, very difficult for me to digest and buy or recommend a buy. The reality is that these are long-term contracts. This is not a contract where let's say Mazagaon Dock or a Cochin shipyard will start making money immediately. These things take 4, 5, 6 years to execute. So a single contract will take 5, 6 years probably to execute and get translated into P&L. And now this probably needs to be understood carefully before we start bidding up the prices on a continuous basis. That's my simple take here. And I'll be cautious. Very clearly, I'll be cautious. Some of these stocks have run up about 10% over the last few days also. And at such elevated levels, entering or, adding, or I'm not very sure whether it's the right thing to do.
What about exiting? Entering, adding, not the right thing to do. But what about booking some profits here? Would you go as far as to say that, Sudip?
Well, I'll be looking like a fool, because if every day is going up by 10% and I'm advising somebody to sell. So what I will do is, for somebody having the stock, is keep a very careful watch. Please ride as long as it's going up. But, if you can, keep a stop loss and keep moving the stop loss every day up, because that's what is happening. So keep moving the stop loss up. But I think it is a matter of concern the way the prices have gone up, and you need to be careful.
I like that idea. Dil sambhal ke aap stop loss badhate jaiye. Osho, you have to come in on this, since we've talked about some of these counters. How do they look on the charts? What would you do with them?
See, majorly all the defense counter, as you both have mentioned, that those are at a very elevated levels, but technically those are looking very positive on the technical perspective. And as he has said that we need to ride the momentum. So currently when the market is looking very bullish and each stocks are gaining approximately 2-3% on average per day, so one should better ride the momentum for these counters with trailing their stop losses to the high levels, specifically for the defense counters like HAL, BEL. All these counters are looking very positive. So even this is my advice also, because from technical perspective, the counters have reached the overbought territory. So one should not be very much aggressive in these counters, but obviously the momentum is still intact. So one should definitely ride on the higher end, but be cautious, maintain caution in these counters and keep trailing the stop losses.
Yeah. We're talking about defense, but we would be completely missing the bus if we didn't talk about the sector of the day. I would say defying all odds, maybe some logic as well. The IT stocks have just been, on a run. They're coming off their highs today, down less than about 1%, but I want to pull up the internals of that index and show you what's running within the IT companies. And there you have it. L&T Tech is the one leading the charge, but even a TCS doing absolutely well. So there is a CLSA note that could have contributed to some of this enthusiasm. Hersh has all of those details. Yes, Hersh?
Well, absolutely, Tamanna. They're talking about the Q4 numbers, what we can expect, and they have a couple of upgrades. So let me first talk about what the expectations are from that CLSA note. What they seem to be suggesting with regard to top line is TCS will lead the pack, at least the larger pack, in the top line growth. 1.8% sequential is what they're expecting. This is constant currency, mind you. BSNL contract is going to drive that number. Outside of TCS, let's pull up the others as well. Infi, Wipro, LTI, Mindtree, Tech Mahindra. Absolutely flat, right? 0.3 is what they are projecting on Infosys, sequential constant currency, to a decline of 1.5 odd, which they are projecting on Wipro. With regard to margins though, flat EBIT margins expected across the board, except HCL Tech and Infi, where margins are expected to shrink a bit, and where Tech Mahindra is concerned, if we can roll over, Tech Mahindra is concerned, margins are expected to expand sequentially, but that's also because of certain one-offs which have been parked in the last couple of quarters. So maybe that will aid margins for Tech Mahindra, maybe not the right base there. In terms of commentary, Q4 has been slow in terms of deals. Deals have been far and few, except one big win that TCS has had. No major deals. Even tech budgets currently are constrained, limited. That's the sense. Mind you, Accenture commentary also came into focus earlier this quarter, where they spoke about weak demand, uncertain macro, conservative guidance across the board. CLSA also continues to give this conservative guidance. There's an unchanged outlook as well. There's no real major change. So let's talk about the FY25 estimates that that CLSA is expecting some of these companies to report 4 to 6% in constant currency there, 5 to 7 for HCL Tech, and Wipro absolutely flat for Q1 FY25, of course. On the margin front, absolutely flat, but the good part is no decline from here, so that's possibly a positive. Let me flip over and try and look at the ratings and targets. TCS, HCL Tech and Tech Mahindra have been upgraded, so that's a positive, but that is also because, and CLSA cautions here, that is also because of the fact that they've rolled forward their earnings estimates, and therefore there's a slight bit of change in the target prices, which is what has led to that change in rating. So that's one. Second, they continue to flag caution. So despite this positive rating change, they continue to flag caution on IT.
Anything in this report, Hersh, which explains what's happening with IT stocks today? Because it seems quite circumspect, to be honest.
Well, Tamanna, it's the same story as Q3. There's no real big change the way I see it. When I'm looking at some of those IT stocks, if we can pull those up, they're doing fairly well in trade today, but except for a TCS, which is expected to deliver a decentish kind of a revenue number sequential for Q4. Outside of that, you're seeing absolutely flat. But the commentary as well as going forward, maybe, they start rolling forward towards Q2 and Q3 in terms of their guidance, which could start to see that uptick. So what I think CLSA continues to believe is as you roll forward, there is a possible upside from here because the worst is already priced in.
Interesting. I want your take, Sudip and Osho, but let me start with Sudip on what we're seeing in tech stocks and why you're seeing this kind of run-up. I mean, all the basic reasons why you would expect that just aren't there right now. The whole interest rate cut scenario by the Fed in June is looking a little more iffy, I would say, than even last week. No great deals in the pipeline or no big change which is visible. What's your take, Sudip, on what's happening?
Well, I think I, to an extent, agree with the CLSA report. I think, we have seen the worst. This is reasonably certain that the worst probably is getting over or is already over. And from Q1 onwards, which is where we are now of FY25 fiscal, we will start probably seeing a slow but definite, recovery. That's our reading as far as technology sector is concerned. In general, there will be company-specific variation, and there will be company-specific, upgrades, downgrades. But the fact is, overall industry, I think we have seen the worst. That's point number one. Point number two is while we are, a little bit skeptical about US Fed rate cuts, when they will start and what will happen and things like that, and definitely from a 6 cuts and all that, we are now talking about 3 cuts, and we are, I think, generally talking about 75 basis point cut throughout the current calendar year as far as US is concerned. But the fact remains that the Fed Chair Powell continues to remain positive. And I think last week, his statements, which he spoke outside at an event, I think was not very discouraging. He didn't give any signal that the rate cuts won't be there or anything like that. So I will not read too negatively into the future prospects, and I will continue to maintain my view that we have probably seen the worst as far as technology is concerned.
Osho, your take? Anything in the tech space that you would pick up or be constructive on?
Looking at the overall momentum in the tech companies for the day, I am expecting that this should continue for the coming 1 to 2 trading sessions. Overall, if I have to say, the major heavyweights or even the mid-cap IT companies, some of the companies were still into a consolidation phase towards sidelines or maybe into a corrective phase. So one of the counter which is looking very lucrative to me on the technical front is Coforge. Looking at the technical setup of Coforge, it was into a corrective phase from the zone of 6,800 towards 50 odd level. So which was approximately the 200-day SMA, which historically has seen a very strong support zone or demand zone for this counter. Even on the technical development, it has already been into the oversold territory. So with today's positive development in the technical, in the tech companies, I am expecting that from here onwards, there can be a significant up move that can be seen in Coforge. So my technical recommendation on portfolios to accumulate at current levels, hovering around the zone of 56, 80 odd levels, keeping a strict stop loss of 5500, which is the 200-day SMA, for immediate upside target of 6,000. So this is one of the recommendations from the mid-cap IT companies. Major of the companies from IT space is looking positive, but this is having a very strong risk-reward ratio.
Okay, time for a quick breather. We'll of course continue the conversation on the other side with our guests, as well as talk about some other spaces and pockets where it's worth speaking about. More on the other side. Stay tuned. Well, thanks for staying tuned to India Market Close here on NDTV Profit. Host of stocks buzzing in trade on the back of volumes. Varsha is here with the list of those stocks.
Hi Hersh. So few of the stocks that are buzzing will be highlighted by me. So starting with Indian Metals and Ferro, which is buzzing on the back of volumes. Now if you see few metal stocks are buzzing today in last few days. Now this is on the back of business updates by the companies, where majority of metal companies are coming up with strong production numbers. Then we have Anupam Rasayan, wherein the stock is buzzing on the back of company has signed deal, that is LOI, letter of intent, with Japanese multinational company, for which the aggregate value of that total contract is almost 743 crore. Then we have Mazagon, wherein company has seen an intraday high of 11.5%. Volumes are over 8x 30-day average. All defense and shipbuilder stocks are buzzing in trade today. So if you see Garden Reach Shipbuilders seen an intraday high of 9%, followed by Cochin Shipyard and Paras Defense, which has seen intraday high of over 7%. Then lastly, we do have Hindustan Zinc, wherein the stock is buzzing on the back of where they have record quarterly refined metal production, which is up 6% quarter on quarter, and mined metal production is up 11% quarter on quarter, and also the refined metal have achieved its highest annual production. So these are few of the stocks which are basically buzzing on news flow.
Okay, thank you for that, Varsha. I want to, out of that, take a cue with regard to metal stocks especially, because that's another segment outside of media maybe which has been on a tear, at least in the first few days of this financial year. And Sudip, I want to take it to you. A bit of the Chinese angle coming through with regard to where metals is concerned. You expect this to last and this to be slightly more structural of sorts when it comes to the metals pack? Do you expect valuations looking decent on the back of this possible Chinese push?
To an extent, you're right. I think this China factor is going to definitely drive globally the metal prices up, and definitely that will have its impact on India and Indian companies related to this as well. Apart from the China factor, I would like to also point out one more issue which will work in favor of the metal is that easing of US interest rates. An expectation is there very much for that happening maybe in the second half of current calendar year. And if and when that happens, that will add a further impetus to this metal price rally. So yes, metal prices are likely to remain at an elevated level. As far as India is concerned and Indian companies are concerned, also there is one more factor. There is significant amount of capital expenditure which is happening. And at this stage, predominantly the government is spending money on infrastructure and construction and multiple other related areas. And that also creates incremental demand for multiple metals. So obviously, at some stage, we expect private capex also to pick up. That again will lead to further increase in demand for metals. So under the circumstances, we expect that the current fiscal FY25, we will see a decent demand and price stability for metals. In fact, the price, there will be an upward bias to the metal prices during the current fiscal. That's what is our belief.
Sure. And Sudip, if I can just quickly chip one more in, how best should one play it? What's the best play even in terms of value and in terms of segment, ferrous, non-ferrous and the like?
Well, I do like the steel companies because I think that's a basic ingredient for all the construction infrastructure work which is going all around us, whether it's the roads, ports and other construction or the housing sector. The steel is in big demand. And if Chinese production also goes up and Chinese demand also goes up, so the dumping issue will be not there. And Indian steel manufacturers, to a great extent, have become resilient to those factors. Some of these steel companies do have captive ore. Tata Steel, for example, JSW to an extent for that in that context. I think these are the companies one should look at, which will definitely benefit from the upswing in capital expenditure and demand for steel.
Osho, your views with regard to technicals on metals?
See, metals have definitely seen a very strong resurgence in the recent period. And some of the counters like Jindal SAW, Jindal Steel and Power are looking very positive. So I'm expecting there is ample amount of room still left in metal space, and one should definitely look on a bullish front for these counters because major of the counters has been into a consolidation for a longer period, and after a long duration they have came out from the consolidation zone. So I'm expecting that from here onwards in the coming, let's say 2 to 3 weeks from that means a short-term perspective, definitely there can be a strong movement that can be seen in the overall metal space.
Osho, if you can quickly highlight that before we move on.
Sorry?
Names and levels, if at all,
okay.
on your radar.
Yes, the first counter which is looking very positive is Jindal SAW. Jindal SAW is hovering near the zone of 490, 500 odd levels. So this is a very strong consolidation zone in the historical period for this counter. So one should definitely try to gauge momentum at the current levels. On the higher end, I am expecting a target, not very aggressive on the targets, but I am expecting 535 to 540 to be seen as the immediate target in this counter. It has seen a very strong movement from the lower zone of 440, 460 odd levels. So I'm expecting that from here onwards, in the coming period, there can be a strong movement that can be seen. Second one is JSW Steel. JSW Steel have seen a consolidation breakout this week only at the zone of 840. So I'm expecting that from here onwards, it has the potential to test 900 odd levels in the coming period. But one should not be very much aggressive in the counter as of now. If there will be any kind of correction in the near period towards the zone of 845, 850, that will be the apt level to accumulate this counter for a higher target of 890 to 900.
All right. The other sector in focus is real estate. Realty is having a bad day. Probably some profits being taken off the table on a sector that has really run up. But we had an interesting conversation today with Prestige Group's top boss, Irfan Razak. Remember, Prestige was in the news because of a 2,000 crore rupee deal that they've inked with ADIA as well as the Kotak AIF. They're going to be developing real estate projects, residential projects with a GDV, a gross development value of 18,000 crore rupees. So we had the opportunity to speak to Irfan Razak about this plan. But during that conversation, he gave us a very interesting bit of news. And this is completely an exclusive, that Prestige is planning to demerge its hospitality unit, its hospitality business, and list it. It could be within this calendar year. Listen in to a slice of that conversation.
What is giving us courage, the revenues will be quite phenomenal, and whatever hospitality assets the company owns now are doing extremely well. So we are looking at some point of time even doing a separate IPO for the hospitality assets itself. We've got the consent of the board for this. The team is working on it. So that will help us build more hospitality assets without getting too much into more debt, you see, because we have to have this balancing act of how much of debt you can get in and how much of equity is required. Even now, this current deal, it's a question of how to balance yourself. How much of debt can you show in your books and how much of equity you can have. Of course, it comes with a trade-off. The moment you give more equity, you are sharing a certain amount of the pie. But I'd rather you share that pie than have that problem of debt on your head. So, I mean, we'll have to keep doing it right. Of course, it doesn't mean to say if it's equity, you become frivolous. You have to make sure that you give the returns to your stakeholders.
Absolutely. An important line over there, Mr. Razak, in that response was that you are looking at hiving off your hospitality business and maybe bringing in another IPO. I think that's very, very interesting. Can you give us any more details? What is the size right now of this hospitality piece of the pie, and by when? You're saying that there is a board approval, if I heard correctly. So by when do you hope to implement this and bring this as an IPO?
It's work in progress. It takes about at least 6 to 8 months. And I believe that in this calendar year, we should be able to pull this off.
All right, so that was an interesting take from Irfan Razak. Let's just quickly pull up the weekly chart for Prestige and see what's happening there. Of course, some profit booking here. But it's over the last 1 month gone up 11.5%. Quite a bit of news flow. We'll take a very short break on this side, but we're going to come back with what's happening in the F&O side of things after this break. Stay tuned.
Welcome back. Straight to the F&O Qs that are coming out very close to close now today. But first off, let me take it across to Agam. Agam, benchmarks not doing much, but plenty of action in broader markets, right?
Certainly. Well, and of course, even in terms of the benchmark, the Bank Nifty continues to be in focus considering the weekly options expiry. But I'm going to start off with the Nifty as usual. And when it comes to the Nifty, well, at the moment, we are looking at, once again, marginal cues. It seems like we're going to close at yet another flat level. And, well, there's been no traction as far as OI is concerned. The Bank Nifty, again, it does seem like the Bank Nifty has had a trending day this time, because we started off the day with levels of around 47,300, and eventually we've seen the Bank Nifty rise by around 300 points, and eventually, well, it does seem like we're going to close in the green at the moment, but we are seeing about a 6.5% added in open interest there as well. Moving on to your overall options market, where today is a day where we saw a little more writing around the 22,500 put. And this is naturally because the Nifty once again tried and tested the life high. It didn't make through there, but we were, well, once again just falling short by about 20 odd points. And this is, of course, your overall distribution. And this is what we're set up to do moving into tomorrow. On the lower end, keeping an eye on 22,000. On the higher end, keeping an eye on 23,000. And, of course, 22,500 in the middle. Bang in the middle, where we are seeing a lot of writing in terms of calls as well as puts. Well, moving on, this is a Bank Nifty distribution. And as I was telling you, we saw the Bank Nifty move above the mark of 47,500, moving on higher, and which is why you're seeing so much writing around, these levels to puts being written here, and of course at 47,600 as well, where we are most likely to see the expiry come through within. And of course, moving on to stocks, keeping an eye on longs, where we did see that in AU Small Finance Bank and Lotus Labs, and of course shorts in Nestle, Kotak Mahindra Bank, as well as something like a DLF. And on the flip side, also keeping an eye on longs and winding for ABFRL, as well as L&T, Gujarat Gas, Coal India and Hindustan Copper looking at a bout of short covering. So keeping an eye on a whole host of these counters. All in all, a mixed day of trade, a quiet one for the Nifty and a trending one for the Bank Nifty.
Okay, well summed up. Thank you so much for that, Agam. But let me take it across to broader markets, and let me take Osho, your views first with regard to where broader markets are at. We've seen a good recovery when it comes to broader markets since, of course, a week or two back when we saw a bit of a correction in that space. Do you believe that that recovery can sustain now?
See, overall, as you have mentioned, in the last 2 weeks, there has been some kind of a strong corrections in the mid-small caps, even followed by Nifty 50, where it has given a strong breach below the 50-day exponential moving average on the daily time frame. But now things have turned around. There has been very much optimism surrounding the market, because for today instance, we can see that we have witnessed a kind of a gap down opening, but that has been augured very well for the buyer. So I'm expecting that from here onwards, the undertone has turned quite bullish, and I'm expecting that the time we give a breakout in the broader market, in the benchmark index, approximately 22,500, then from there onwards, a strong upsurge can be seen. So I'm having a very bullish approach in the market, but will be adamant to have aggressive approach as of now, and will be having buy on dip a kind of a approach for the time being. So overall, trend seems to be positive, but one needs to keep patience and be fuzzy with the stock selections.
Osho, can we get your calls for this afternoon? What would be your trades in the last, I think, 20 odd minutes?
Firstly, the first call which I would like to give is from the IT space, which I already have given in Coforge. The other counter is from PSU banks. Canara Bank has given a breakout today, and I'm expecting that it will be sustaining the zone of 600 for the day. So I'm expecting that in the follow-up day, a strong move can be seen. So Canara Bank is a buy, which can be even for BTST and for positional basis both. For positional basis, I'm expecting a target of nearly 620 to 625, keeping a strict stop loss of around 585. For BTST, approximately 612 to 15 kind of a target can be seen, keeping a strict stop loss of nearly 590.
Interesting, Canara Bank there. But Sudip, let me try and close this loop here with regard to broader markets as well. Your views, there was some concern with regard to valuations, especially when we saw that bit of correction. What's your sense now? We've again seen some of the broader markets doing very well. We are seeing good traction in that space today.
Well, what we have been witnessing is consolidation around these all-time highs. The market reached a certain level, and after that, I think it's hovering in that range. I think the overall market movement have been in a very narrow band, if you really see, over the last 15, 20 days. And I think, I don't think it's bad for the health of the market. It's a bit of consolidation at such elevated levels. I think is good for the market. Bit of profit taking, bit of consolidation, bit of, staying at these levels is not bad. Trajectory definitely is positive. All kind of dips eventually are getting bought into. And under the circumstances, I would say that at some point of time, I think there are a few triggers coming. One is of course, the corporate results, which will start trickling in from next week. We have the monsoon update, monsoon forecast and things like that. And of course, the elephant in the room, which is the election results and election, which is around the corner. I think these three factors will drive the market, apart from, of course, the interest rate scenario and how it pans out as far as US Fed interest rate cuts are concerned. We are not expecting too much from RBI, but by and large, the US Fed action along with corporate results and monsoon predictions will keep us excited for the next 30 to 45 days.
I don't know how exciting elections are. Frankly, I've been waiting for that buzz to kick in this time round. Sudip, it's, markets have discounted it. No one's talking about it yet. But perhaps we'll see some pickup in the next few days. Meanwhile, another interesting story is the Bharti Hexacom IPO date. Subscriptions have started. The IPO closes on Friday, April 5th. Now, why is there so much excitement about it? What is this IPO all about? My colleague Smriti is joining with more details.
Well, yes, Hexacom has opened its IPO today, and just to give you an overview of what the company does, it operates in two circles largely, Rajasthan and Northeast states. So that's a total of 7 states across the country. Now it provides fixed line broadband and mobile services in these 7 states. Revenue-wise, market share in Rajasthan is nearly 40%, while revenue-wise market share in Northeast circle is 52%. So quite a big market share in terms of how limited the company operates in. But let's talk about the IPO. It had launched an IPO of 4,275 crores. It's a pure offer for sale. Now, a government-owned entity, Telecommunications Consultants of India, is selling 20% stake in the company. It held 30%, now, out of which it's going to sell off 20% now, and the rest 70% is held by the parent company, that's Bharti Airtel. Now, the company has already raised 1,923 crores from anchor investors. Now, anchor investors include marquee names like Capital Group, ADIA, Morgan Stanley, Capital Group. Among domestic investors, we have Aditya Birla Sun Life, ICICI Access Mutual Fund. But let's focus on the financial highlights of the company as well. Now, it had a revenue of 6,579 crore, which was 22% up 22% on a year-on-year basis. The operating profit was around 2,925 crores, which is 54% upside from the previous year. Margin was 44% versus 35%, and ARPU in FY23 was at 185 versus 155 in the previous year. Let's talk about the valuation of the company as well. Now, if you look at this from a point of view of what the valuation may be after it gets listed, it's somewhere around 28,500 crores or thereabouts. So that's pretty much the picture of the IPO as we stand today.
Right. Thanks for that, Smriti, for breaking that down for us. Currently 0.27 times subscribed as we speak. QIB around 0.3 and retail around 0.4 times subscribed. So still up for grabs, Tamanna. And it's very interesting because if the ARPU does move from that, it's moved from 155 to 185. But if it moves towards 300, which is where Sunil Mittal has suggested it ought to move to.
Suggested, he's been emphatic about it. He's been emphatic about it in every interview, including when he spoke with us last. but it's more of what the industry will do. I mean, everyone's pricing that ARPUs will eventually move. I just want to give a quick take with Sudip on Bharti Airtel. It's buzzing today. Vodafone as well. Vodafone, there's going to be an EGM for the fundraise, and you didn't see great numbers from Bharti Airtel in the last lot, but the stock's doing okay today. Your take on this and the IPO, if any, Sudip?
Well, I think definitely, Airtel has been doing well. They have over the last 3-4 years, if you see, I think remarkable performance improvement have been seen in Airtel, both domestic as well as the international business. And the ARPU increase, of course, is the holy grail, and that's what pretty much Jio as well as Bharti Airtel has been working on and are very keen to go there. Unfortunately, it hasn't yet happened, but it should happen, and pretty much everybody agrees. And I think it's a matter of time before it happens. Under the circumstances, with the kind of dominance Airtel has, the kind of incremental customer additions which they are doing month on month, of course, mostly at the cost of Vodafone, I think it's a good long-term play. So I don't have any challenges in recommending a buy in either Bharti or Airtel or subscribing to the IPO for a long-term investor. Now, if you're looking for a short-term flip, I'm not sure what will happen either in Bharti Airtel or the IPO. But if you're a long-term investor, I think it's a good bet to get into.
All right, good bet to get into for a long-term investor. Another stock that has been in focus is Tata Tech, and there's a JP Morgan note out on their deal with, it's a JV actually with BMW. They remain underweight with a target price of 800. They say the JV is a step in the right direction, will reduce dependence on anchor customers, and that really is the big issue or the challenge when it comes to Tata Tech. They say the estimated revenues are initially $5 million from this JV and could lead to an eventual annual revenue opportunity of $50 million. They're awaiting clarity on accounting and margin profile, and they say they need to scale up revenue from non-anchor clients to more than $20 million. It's interesting, Hersh, because when I had the chance to speak with the Tata Tech CEO, I asked him this question constantly. What is the revenue? What does it do to your margins? Of course, he said, I can't tell you because the JV is still in store. But on the anchor clients, and that's their problem, right? The top 5 clients are 70% of their revenue.
Correct. Yes.
They weren't very clear about whether this will change that. Are they going to be at least in the top 3 or top 5? What is important, though, is that BMW did a global hunt.
Yes.
For this profile and has picked Tata Tech. So that becomes important.
Yes, absolutely. And even in terms of valuations, Tamanna, it's not a very cheap stock to be in.
Yeah.
The IPO happened at 600 odd. And we're currently sitting at 1,000 plus.
Target price of 800.
Correct.
Is what JP Morgan has given.
So yes. That's just the situation which is playing out. And of course, client concentration is definitely a concern. Let's go across to Sudip, ask him for his views. Sudip, do you think this is obviously a step in the right direction, but when would you start to feel comfortable that client concentration is going away? Not yet for sure.
No, absolutely right. I think why they are not answering that question is because it probably doesn't move the needle much. But it's a step in the right direction. That's what I will say. And it's very important that a company of BMW's repute has selected them amongst, I'm sure, multiple other contenders. So they are moving in the right direction. I'm not, of course, the client concentration is an issue and we keep highlighting that. And that's an issue, of course. But I'm not too perturbed. If you look at this company, I think they're doing very well. They're providing a fantastic service. And with the automobile industry moving towards EV and more technologically advanced vehicles, I think the requirement of Tata Tech services will be more and more felt. So under the circumstances, I believe the company has a bright future. So for a long-term investor, it's a fantastic buy. It was a great buy during IPO and it's a great buy even now.
Yeah, even at 11:35. So a lot of things we spoke to Warren Harris about, and do catch that full interview on all our social media platforms, including on the website. But the question that I wanted to play out here is when I ask him how they're going to manage the relationship with JLR. JLR is their anchor client, a clear rival of BMW. So how do they manage that equation? Listen into what he said.
Well, we've established a capability to protect the confidentiality and the information that is shared with us by our top clients. We're very proud of the relationship with JLR. The relationship at JLR has allowed us to demonstrate the capabilities that we represent on both the full product side of our value proposition, all the way through embedded electronics, software, and again, enterprise IT. So we've been able to, I think, demonstrate capability at scale with JLR that has really reinforced confidence with other customers like BMW. But we will continue to protect the trust and confidence that is extended with Tata Technologies across our entire customer portfolio. Integrity and trust is the basis on which we've built our customer pyramid, and it's something that we will never compromise upon.
Okay, Osho, your take on Tata Tech with regard to charts, how do you see it?
See, for Tata Tech, the technical charts are not very much suffice, but looking at the overall trend, because it is newly listed company, and from after the listing price, there has been a consecutive correction in the prices. But overall, being the fundamentals of the company or from a longer perspective, the company is very positive for investment. But for short-term perspective, yes, I'm having a view that above the zone of 1170, 1180, there can be some kind of buying traction that can be seen in this counter. While on the downside, 1000 should be acting as the initial support zone from where it has actually reversed. So 1000 should be acting as the support, and 1170, 80 should be acting as the resistance for this company. So in between, it might hover in the coming period, but after the breach, we can witness some kind of buying traction again following in Tata Tech company.
Just purely on the charts, Osho, this 800 target price that JP Morgan has put in, what's your take on that?
Yeah, I'm not very much in line with the same view, but again, that has been fundamentally taken. But even before IPO, even our companies have also given a very strong fundamental for the company, and everybody have quoted a very strong IPO for this company, and even a higher counter for a longer duration. So I'm still intact with the view, and I'm expecting in the coming future, from a fundamental point of view, there can be strong upsurge in this company. So I'm expecting a decent movement. There should not be any worrisome that can be triggered in this company for the timing. So I'm expecting a decent upside movement with a gradual, not very aggressive, but a gradual up move can be seen over a period of time.
Okay, Osho, and anything else within the R&D basket that you seem to like, maybe better than this or otherwise as an option?
See, overall, there are many counters which are looking very positive, but conducively as of now on the technical charts, I am not very much aggressive in the markets, because I'll be awaiting for some kind of strong momentum or a strong breakout in major of the company. So I'll be having a subdued move. I will be stuck with the stock-centric approach in the market for the time.
Any BTST trades, Osho, that you want to highlight?
See, firstly, as I have mentioned, Canara Bank, the target which I have mentioned, it is near about the same target. So looking at the overall trend, only two sectors are looking very positive, on which I'm expecting that it should continue its upward movement in the coming period. One is PSU Bank, the other one is IT companies. Apart from these two companies, the counter which is looking positive is from chemical, that is Coromandel International. Coromandel has given a breakout in the last trading session, and I'm expecting that a follow-up buying can be seen in this counter for a higher target of nearly 1180 in the coming time. So for BTST, one can even look for Coromandel, because it has been gaining strong traction on the back of volumes from past 3 days, and it has given a breakout from 1120 odd level. So one should keep a stop loss of 1120 for upside target of nearly 1175 to 1180.
Since you talked about chemicals, have you been tracking Anupam Rasayana and what we've seen today with it? Osho, what would you do with the stock?
See, overall, I have not seen the recent movement in the company, but overall, this counter is not having a strong traction for the timing. So I'm expecting that once it gives a decent breakout above the zone of psychological mark of 900, then only it can witness some kind of traction in the coming period.
So, given up most of its gains of the day, we have Sudip with us as well. Sudip, last calls for what would be your focus areas? What's on top of your list for trade tomorrow?
Well, I think I'm focused on the real estate players. I think there's a significant traction there, and forget today's correction. By and large, I think there is a lot of traction. So, Godrej properties definitely look good after the correction, which we did see now, and that can be bought at for a significant upside over the next 6 to 12 months.
Okay, and Sudip, we have a slew of updates coming in from the lending side of things as well. You have Satin Credit, which came out with numbers doing fairly well in trade today, but maybe not some of the smaller lenders. But one thing that's really caught my eye is something like a Yes Bank. They've done very well on the deposit side of things. Sequential 10% on deposits, well, not something that I was penciling in at all. What's your sense with regard to Yes Bank? On both valuations, there's been a run-up as well as on the numbers itself.
I think the commendable performance, absolutely right, Hersh. I think they have been really doing well, and quietly so. And without raising too much of expectation, they have been delivering. And definitely it deserves a lot more than what it is getting. Of course, the price have run up quite a bit already, but I think a commendable performance. I would also probably bring in RBL here. That's another bank which has gone through some turbulence, and again, quietly they're doing a lot of good work. So both Yes and RBL are on my radar.
Okay, and Sudip, with regard to the large, while we are on banks and on financials, do you see value in some of the larger private sector banks? Do you think HDFC Bank will deliver a decent quarter? It's something that is on everyone's radar. Everyone's just waiting for that turnaround there for that one. Also, if I can pull in the other larger NBFC, something like a Bajaj Finance, which has also languished. Do you think that both of these are possible opportunities to buy at this point just before earnings?
Well, if you are really trying to do that for the earnings, I would say probably refrain. I don't think earnings will come in a shape or manner that will really provide blockbuster returns for somebody buying at current levels. So I think, but if you are looking at a long term for HDFC Bank, I think it's a fantastic story, and it can be definitely bought. The reality is the deposit mobilization is becoming a challenge and a costly affair, and that is going to have an impact on credit growth and the margins. So I'd say it's a trade-off which some of these banks will have to do. Let's see where things settle down. But at this stage, I don't think I will buy HDFC Bank for short term.
All right. Thank you so much, Sudip and Osho, for joining us today and taking us through the end of the trade. So we're almost at the closing bell right now, and let's just take a look at how markets are pairing out while we end. Again, another completely flat, slightly negative day for the Nifty. So second consecutive day where your top line indices are going to end in the red, definitely, but not with too much of a downward bias. Let's just pull up and see what's happening at the broader end of the markets and where you are seeing the buzz over there. So definitely better. Again, a consistent trend that we've been seeing from the last few sessions where your small cap and your mid cap is doing much better. In fact, I want to pull up the micro cap because the micro cap 250 was leading the way through most of the day. So yes, even that's about 1.5% up. Let's see what's happening with the advanced decline ratios and where we seem to be ending at close today. And yeah, pretty much steady, a bit narrower. That gap is narrowing a bit, but about a 1:3 ratio, and not half bad for a market which opened with very, very negative global cues. Remember, at the start of this morning, you had bond yields jumping, you had crude sharply high, gold was higher, US markets were down. So all things considered, it's not looking like a very bad close. I just want to pull up the heat map and see where we're ending and whether anything has changed massively. Not really. Shriram Finance, I think the standout of the day. We'll have to figure out what's really fueling Shriram Finance. Looks like it's ending about 4% up. Your PSU pack, your tech pack has been the story of this afternoon, Harsh, you would agree. So if you look at an NTPC, TCS has been stellar today, and as a heavyweight really helping, I think, keeping the momentum balanced, even though on the face of it, the Reds completely outweigh.
Correct.
So your TCS, Tech Mahindra, all of them doing fairly well. Bharti may be getting a bit of boost from that IPO which is open. And on the losing side, Nestle has had a rough day, so has Dr. Reddy's, Bajaj Auto, and Kotak Mahindra Bank has particularly not had a very good day. But the real, I think, movers and shakers have been among the small cap and micro caps.
Well, yes, absolutely, Tamanna. That's where the action has been. 0.5% higher on the mid cap. Even the small cap index has done fairly well, 1+% in trade. And let's look at the advanced decline because that will signify this. The advanced decline strongly in favor of the advances. There you go, 3:1 in favor of the advances. So the breadth of the market through the day was quite strong, Tamanna, and that is reflecting in where the broader markets were at. Let's look at some names which were buzzing. Let's pull up some defense counters, something like a Mazgon Dog, the top mid-cap gainer, at least in trade today. Let's see where that one's closed, nearly 12% higher. So that's the other one, 8.5% higher. Cochin Shipyard, that's the second top gainer within the Nifty Midcap 100
We should look at what's happened to Garden Reach as well, since we're on this entire theme which was building today, and maybe off its highs a bit, but still 7% up. So those were the stories today, apart from, I would say, metals, your Nalco, MOIL, and all of those.
JSW Energy, it seems to have done very, very well in trade today as well. QIP News, 7% higher, that one. And let's also pull up something like a Laurus Labs, because that is up as well in trade today. It's done fairly well. Among those which have not done well in the broader markets, some real estate names, Loda, Godrej Prop, if we can see where those have closed. Some of the top losers on the Nifty mid-cap. Cochin Shipyard was, of course, the top gainer on the Nifty small cap. But Angel One has done very, very well today as well. So that one has closed nearly 6% higher. So lots of names in the broader markets which have done well.
Theme-wise, if you had to build it, I would say Realty was not having a good day at all. IT was decent. Banks was, medium, neither here nor there. But standout story, defense and Reality
and
took
sugar.
the cake. Sugar was definitely sweet. Some of those counters, Dwarkesh, etc., have done very, very well today. Well, that's all the time we have on the show. So from Hersh, me and the entire team that put it together, thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned. A lot more coming up on the other side.